Okay, so I am going to walk you through on how epigenetics works. This is a very complicated topic with a lot of really big words, so it can be a little bit difficult to understand and absorb all the information, but I'm going to do my best in explaining this to you. So epigenetics is how the environment affects our genes and how they are expressed. So we can think of genes that are turned on and turned off. Now, it's important to remember that just because a gene is turned off or on does not mean that that DNA is washed away. The DNA is always present. It's just whether it's being read or not. So that's really important to remember. Some of the ways that it is inhibited from being read is called like the mechanisms of epigenetics. So there's 3 different ways. There's non-coding RNA. There is the methylation, and then there is hold on, give me 1 second. I was going to try to do it without reading my notes, but I might have to read my notes. It is the the histone modification. So the methylation is when the methyl group is added to a nitrogen base. The methyl is attached to the cytosine, which is turned off. So the methyl comes in, it attaches to the cytosine, and then that DNA cannot be read. Then is the histone modification. Histoproteins are, so the DNA comes and wraps around these proteins, and when a chemical is added to this, the DNA gets too tight and then is unable to be read. And then the last one is the non-coding RNA. This is when the RNA comes out and it binds to other RNA, and then that RNA is unable to be read. So those mechanisms all block the DNA from being read, and it can be very, very, it can have a big, big impact on our genetics and genes and how those are then passed down to our children. Okay, that's a lot of information there. How is epigenetics inherited? So I like to think of this as we have our gamete cells, and these cells that are being created, they get washed away of all of our history. So when our history is washed away, you can think of it as there's no more of our history. But essentially, none of our history is fully washed away. So that history does get passed on from generation to generation. So there's about 1% of our history that stays within those cells. It's never fully clean. You can also think of this as like a house that is being built. You can clean a house. If you're moving out of a house, you can clean it. You can take all your things. You can take all your photos. But there might be things about the house that still there'll always be like a history of you within that home. You might have changed the walls when you moved in. You might have changed the house color. You might have changed wallpaper. You might have laid different floors. So that history of you is still there, but the things of your photos and your blankets and your clothes are now gone. So you can think of that when you're trying to think of, well, how does this get passed on to generation? The cells get wiped clean, but there's always still a little bit of our inheritance within those cells. And then the last thing is, why is this important to midwifery? It's important because it's going to impact our clients and their genes. There's still so much research to be understood about epigenetics, but how are these fetuses going to be able to process how are our fetuses developing? Is there a gene that's coming through that's going to affect how they develop in the womb? And is it safe for them to be born at home? That is always my biggest I wouldn't say concern, but it's something that's on my mind when I'm ruling someone in and out of home birth, is I want to make sure that genetically they should have a baby that is healthy enough to be born and be able to breathe and eat and have a heart that beats. And if there's concerns about any of those mechanisms, I want to make sure that they're in the right setting so that they get the care that they need. Again, for the birthing person, I want to make sure that there's no factors in there that's going to affect their labor, their postpartum, hemorrhage, blood clotting, all of that. But none of that is there and is going to affect their birth or risk their life by being home. And then, one intervention that clients can take. I think with all clients, we want to make sure that their stress is low, that they're eating properly, that they're in a home that isn't filled with mold or concerning environmental factors such as smoking, drinking. All of that can really affect our genes. We always say sleep, eat, and hydration. We want to make sure that those things are on point, but we want to make sure that the food that they're eating is nutritious, that the water that they're drinking isn't going to affect them. And stress is a huge one in affecting our genes and really changing who we are deep down on a cellular level. So all of these factors are really bring it right back to epigenetics and how, like, deep down within our DNA, things can be changed. They can be turned off and turned on. So it's important to have a general understanding of this in order to support our clients.